to this computer. That's the simplest thing. Okay, so we are recording. So apologies to anybody who may find that they haven't found their way here and are listening to it on the recording, even though they wanted to be there in person at the time. Um, yeah, technology. You'd never believe I had a master's in computing, but there we go. Um, so I forgive the technology. I need to say this. I forgive the technology. And it's probably something that I did because technology is very logical, it's very step by step. And I, despite having a master's in computing, am not logical and step by step. And that's why I don't do computing, because I always manage to miss something critical. So something goes wrong. But that's okay. I'm fine with it. Good thing I'm a coach. So let's talk today. What I thought we'd do today is there's a couple of people who've raised questions. So we've got a couple of topics which I think are relevant and interesting as topics to address because they come up a lot. And then it's an opportunity for you to also, if you questions, specific questions you might have around forgiveness. But let's take the ones that have come in already, because as I say, there's a theme, or there's a theme or two. And one of the themes that has come up is friendship. Now, within friendship, there's a couple of different strands that have come up. One of the strands is friendships that drift. What about that and Ho'oponopono? Another one is somebody's been a good friend and somehow something goes wrong. And what do I do about that? And how do I treat that? So I thought we'd start there, and then we can go into more specific questions as we go along. So I think with friendship, the thing with friendship is that we join paths with people. We come onto a common path, and sometimes that common path will continue for a very long time, forever, until death us do part. And sometimes that path, there's growth. We're growing, and we all grow at different rates, and we all grow in different ways. And one of the things that I've learned is there are some people that as I grow, they grow too, and we're growing pretty much in the same direction. There are other people who, as I've grown, they haven't, or they've grown at a very, very different speed and direction. And there's some people where we're both growing, we're growing in different directions, but we still manage a friendship, we still manage a relationship. But one of the challenges is, especially and I'm sure many of you noticed it, as we start to grow, develop, and change, those who are not on the same path can feel quite discombobulated. They can feel at odds, or we can feel at odds with them because the conversations that we used to have become irrelevant. Um, I know so that happens with several friends who stopped drinking, that conversations, situations that were lubricated by alcohol and they're no longer drinking, that level of lubrication, that level of whatever alcohol gives you, isn't there anymore. And their friends, oh, you're not as much, classic one, you're not as much fun as you used to be when you were drinking. Classic. There's a parting of the ways. There's the growth directions are just different. And it's not to say one is right or wrong, one is wrong, or that drinking's good or bad or whatever, but the growth directions are different. And sometimes, yeah, sometimes you have to move on. So in such cases, the first thing to do is really to sit down and acknowledge that change has happened and the directions, the paths are different. Now, it may be that from a soul's perspective, the paths always were different. and you just sort of came together, you kind of breezed along for a while, but you were always going to go in different directions. It may be from a soul's perspective that the paths needed to come together for a little while, and then they were going to separate, go in different directions. Who knows? But very often there comes a point where you have to sit down, firstly with yourself, and ask yourself, okay, what really is going on here? Why is this difference that I'm feeling with this person? Is it actually a reality? Or is it my perception of their behavior? I was having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and he showed me a series of email exchanges he's had with somebody, a very old friend back when from childhood. I think actually a relative, a distant relative, and they're over the years they live in different cities and so on and so forth. So they're not as close as they used to be. And recently, my friend tried to reconnect with this person, and he was a bit uneasy about the exchange of WhatsApp messages and the way it had gone. He was like, this feels odd. Could you read it?" And I read it, and I went, might feel odd in your head, but as I read it, you know, it makes perfect. I can understand. It doesn't feel odd. It doesn't feel like there's any edge in the conversation, which enabled my friend to kind of rethink and think, oh, actually, that might be true. It's my stuff. So the first question is it a reality or is it my stuff? Is it my baggage? Is it they've done something that reminds me of my mother or my grandmother or my sister who used to tease me when I was a kid or whatever? And I'm bringing that stuff now into this moment in the relationship. So is it my baggage or is it reality? And then the question is, and what am I going to do with it? Is it time to sever the relationship? Is it time to set boundaries? Because it may just be that I'm not setting boundaries anymore. What do I want to do about it? And accepting, I'll come to you in a second, man, accepting that some relationships need to be brought to an end. And mhm, it's not a sin, it's not a terrible thing. Some relationships need to be brought to an end. And it might be that's part of our soul's journey. It might be that's part of our soul's purpose. Marilyn, you had a question.
Yeah, you mentioned that is it reality?
Mm.
But what is reality when both are not aligned anymore?
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
the reality is a weird thing anyway,
yeah,
because actually there is no reality outside my own head, because everything that happens, I am interpreting, you are interpreting also, we are all interpreting through our own filters, our own experiences, our own beliefs, our own perceptions, our own values, long list of filters that we have. And they're different for each of us, even for identical twins. So the reality in my head, my interpretation of events is always going to be different than each and every one of you. There will be differences because my full set of experiences and values and beliefs and all that long list is different from yours. There will be overlap. We may share some values. I mean, Pam and I, we've known each other for 30 years. We share a lot of common experiences. But what goes on in her head is still different from what goes on in my head, fortunately for her. Uh, so, so reality is always, our perception of reality is always conditioned by these filters. And since I'm not in any of your heads, and be very grateful for that, I can never know exactly how you are experiencing things, and you can never know exactly how I am experiencing things. There's a level of interpretation. So there is that sense of reality. And then there is, you have a person X. Let's give him a name, Joe. You have Joe. Yeah. Could be a chap, could be a woman. But anyway, there's Joe. And Joe is, let me just let Cat in. Okay. And Joe is actually feeling pretty pissed off. That's Joe's reality at me, at you, at one of us. And they're feeling angry, and that's Joe's reality. So if I am looking at Joe, I'm observing Joe's behavior and I'm observing, okay, oh, that's interesting. Joe used this specific language. Joe jumped up in the air. Joe stamped their feet. Joe made a face. Yeah. All those things are they're observations of what Joe did. They're observations of behavior. Now, based on those observations of Joe's behavior, which will be related to how Joe's feeling, I will make certain conclusions about how Joe is feeling. Though my interpretation of Joe's behavior may be correct in terms of how Joe is feeling, or it might not. So let's say Joe is really stressed and in a hurry and is having a bad day. I'm nagging Joe for something. There's something I want from Joe. And I send 3 messages to Joe saying, can you do this? Joe is feeling stressed, and Joe is feeling stressed out already. And Joe responds to me in a kind of, oh, really great to hear from you. Thanks so much. And I will pay attention to it, but but tomorrow, because Joe's feeling stressed out. And I then interpret that behavior, observable behavior, as, oh, Joe's really pissed off with me. No, Joe is just stressed and is responding because they're stressed and they don't have time to deal with me right now. And that's what I mean about the difference between the reality, Joe demonstrated certain behaviors, and how I interpret that and what I make that mean. It's the meaning that we make out of our experiences. Does that make sense, Marilyn? Yeah. And that's what I mean about
Yeah, thank you.
these differences in reality.
Yeah, and it requires maybe a little bit of courage and have a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yes. Forgiveness
Yeah.
is forgiveness is not for it really is not for wimps. I do a keynote speech. Forgiveness is not for wimps. Forgiveness really is not for wimps. It takes courage. It takes courage to say to let somebody go. It takes courage to say somebody, you know, those behaviors, this is how it made me feel. This is how what and I don't find that behavior acceptable, and I'm willing to forgive you. I want I want to forgive you, and I ask you to forgive me too. To do that face to face, which you do sometimes have to do, because Ho'oponopono is a brilliant, that's the forgiveness process that I teach, is a brilliant thing. Writing love letters to yourself, uh, you know, writing a letter, a forgiveness letter, is a wonderful thing. And very often it will do the job. But what if it doesn't? Then very often you need to have the face-to-face conversation, the actual face-to-face conversation. So there's a conversation in your head, often does work because you change the energy inside yourself. you change the relationship with the other person. But sometimes it isn't enough, and sometimes you have to actually have the conversation face to face. And forgiveness is not condoning. So it's not saying, oh, there, that behavior that I really think is unspeakable. No, we can let it pass. If people if people commit criminal acts, forgive them and let the law take its course. Yeah. So it's not forgiveness, and it doesn't, forgiveness is not it does not necessarily mean take no action. Sometimes part of the forgiveness process is an action of some kind has to be taken. I forgive you, and I'm going to report you to the appropriate authorities, because what you're doing is really in the scheme of things is it goes way beyond those it goes way beyond dodging a parking fine, and no, it needs to be dealt with at a different level. I mean, I'm talking about criminal acts because it's an easy thing to get your head around. But yeah, forgiveness is not condoning and accepting that which is morally unacceptable or legally unacceptable or ethically unacceptable. No, 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 no. And it can be hard to forgive somebody who's hurt you. It's not always easy. So there's a bravery in that, forgiving people who've been sexually abused, forgiving the sexual abuser. That is hard. And when you do it, it's probably the most liberating thing that you can do, and one of the most healing things that you can do in terms of such abuse. It's and that's forgiveness and Ho'oponopono as a forgiveness tool um, is one of the most liberating things that we can do. And the funny thing about forgiveness is the act of forgiveness takes about a nanosecond. It can take a lifetime to get to the point where you are ready to do the forgiving. And the more we can accelerate that lifetime, the more we can speed up the getting to the point where I'm totally willing to forgive, the better. That's, that's where it really, once you're ready, easy peasy lemon squeezy. But it's getting to the point of being ready. And sometimes we don't know until we try it. So going back to the kind of circling back to the original question around, forgiving friendships. Yeah, is the change in the relationship that I perceive, is it real, or is it me coming in with a load of baggage? And that would be my first question. Accepting that some relationships, yeah, the energy is no longer there. The direct, we're going off in our different directions. Some friendships do drift for all sorts of reasons. I do. I'm really bad at keeping contact with old friends. Unfortunately for me, I have some good friends like Pam who are really good at it. So, so, and it's not because I don't value the friendship. It's because my brain works on an out of sight, out of mind basis. So, um, if they're not kind of there in my active consciousness, it's not that I don't love you. It's just you're not there right there in front of me. And my brain doesn't really it's like there's too much else going on. I'm probably ADHD. Um, but it's the way my brain works. So apologies to anybody who they may have felt that I'm neglecting. It's not that. It's just that that's not the way my brain works. So Yes, I have lost friends along the way because I'm not great at doing all the different things that need to be done to maintain an active and positive friendship. Luckily for me, the ones who matter, they've made it, they've made it stick. They've kept it stuck. So yeah, sometimes we lose friends because we don't take the action. Sometimes their lives get too much. We've asked them 5 times if they want to do something, and they don't respond. And we kind of go, yeah, actually, no, I'm done with that. I've asked 5 times, and I'm done with that. Those things happen. But however it goes, forgiving them and forgiving yourself for the change is healthy and liberating. But there is something about acceptance. And I don't know, we put rules around friendship. Sometimes we put we've got our own rules about what friendship is and what it looks like. And I'm not even talking about love languages, although I am. Um, but we've got these rules about well, because I knew some so and so at school, um, and we were best friends at school, that means therefore we have to continue to be best friends for the rest of life because that's what best friends at school do. Well, if that's your rule, anything that deviates from that is going to appear as difficult behavior on the part of the other person. So yeah, forgiving yourself and the other person. If and it may be that you're both really happy with the drift. Have the conversation and move on. And some friendships, yep, the the friend does things that are beyond the pale. Um, for example, sort of classic type of thing is you're in a relationship with somebody, and your best friend comes along and moves in on your partner and moves out with them, um, and that can feel pretty unacceptable. And it always takes two to tango, but it may be that brings you to a point where no, the relationship with my friend has to end, and the relationship with my partner possibly has to end or not. But do it with forgiveness and accept that there are endings. And the thing about endings, and a lot of people don't accept endings, the thing about endings is that they create space for new beginnings. And sometimes we hang on to people, places, and things long after we really should have ended them, and we're hanging on to them. And so there's no space for something new to come in. There's no space for new opportunity. There's no space for new possibility because it's feng shui. It's feng shui for the soul or for the emotions. Feng shui is, you get rid of the clutter and you put the things in the correct places, and certain corners don't have anything because it blocks the energy or whatever. But big part of feng shui is getting rid of the clutter because clutter blocks the flow of energy. Holding on to old relationships that no longer support us and sustain us, or no longer support and sustain the other person, that's like holding on to physical clutter. Yeah. Does that make sense? So those were the initial questions were about friendship, and I think those are probably the two big pieces as far as friendship. But yeah, forgiveness, forgiveness, forgiveness. Get yourself to the place where you're able to forgive. It's really, really important. Don't blame my brain. Oh, I'm not blaming my brain. I'm saying that's how my brain is. I'm not blaming it. That's how my brain operates.
But is
Me,
that your belief, Jane?
well, me and my brain have spent nearly 70 years together, so it is a belief.
I'm just out with my spoon.
Yeah, we've had nearly 70 years together, so and it is possible to change as well. There's much about my brain that I've changed over the last 70 years. So, so let me just check in the group if there were any other convestiones. Okay. I'm just checking in different places because some of the questions have come up in okay, friendships. Yep. I think we've probably done friendship breakdowns. Yep. Okay, and then Marilyn, around immaturity. Do you want to talk more about that, or just do you want me just to take it off for the from the Facebook group?
No, you can just what came up when you read that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So something about feeling guilty for not having been mature in certain stages of my life,
Yeah, in certain moments.
where I think I should have, and most probably have hurt people.
Yeah.
And then at the collective level for collective human behaviors. I'm neurospicy. I think I probably am neurospicy. Yeah. I've just never had the neurospicy. I've never had the neurospicy diagnosis, but and I'm not sure that I need it now. So let's okay, I think there's actually two pieces there. So one is guilt about my shoulds or my shouldn'ts. And then the other piece is the collective piece. So let's do them separately. So the shoulds and the shouldn'ts. I mean, I love Edith Piaf. My French accent isn't what it used to be, but je ne regrette rien. Yes, I'm with you, Edith. I'm with you. And do I have regrets? Yes, I do. Because there's the other song, Regrets. I have a few. So regret is can be an unhealthy. It depends on your approach. Regret can be a deeply unhealthy emotion if you get so locked into it. You know, if you're so regret. I have regrets, but I'm not bitter about them. It's like, yeah, it would have been great if I'd done it. I'm not going to do it now. Yeah, I regret it, but I'm not attached to the regret. I'm not bitter about the regret. Or I'm not angry about the regret. And then there are those things, there are those regrets, shoulds and should nots, where there's that emotional charge. And it's the ones where there's an emotional charge that we have to do, that there's work to be done. So, yeah, probably most of us at some point in our lives have done things where either with intention or not with intention, we've hurt somebody else. So the Hawaiian forgiveness code, the Hawaiians believe that everything has to be forgiven. In ancient Hawaiian times, they'd forgive you. They might then execute you, but you die, you die forgiven. Yeah. If the crime was sufficient, you might be executed, and they'd have you forgive them for executing you. But most of us, intentionally or unintentionally, have hurt other people. So there's three levels in the Hawaiian system. The first is what they call hala, and a hala is an unintentional offense or hurt. Several of you will have heard this story, but it's quite a good illustration. So number of years ago, I was coaching on an NLP program. It was a master practitioner program, and in order to get their certificate, they had to pass this open book exam. So when they turned up for the actual training, they would be assigned a coach, like me, to coach them through to make sure that they passed the book test, as well as being able to actually demonstrate the techniques in person. So this guy I was working with, And he was resistant. Oh, he was resistant. Um, but he had to get 100%, otherwise he wasn't going to get his certificate. So we had quite a few fights along the way, he and I. But we got him through. He got to the end. He did it finally. Um, got his 100%, got his certificate. And he came up to me after the end and he said, Jane, I'd like to say thank you for your support. I realize I probably wasn't the easiest, student. But I have to say, and I thought, oh, here it comes. But I have to say, you reminded me of my school dinner lady. Now, for some people, school dinner ladies were wonderful people. And for those of you who aren't from, there's a few who aren't necessarily from the UK culture, a school dinner lady is the woman they're the women who stand behind the food counter and they dish out the food at lunchtime. Some school dinner ladies are gorgeous and loved, and everybody loves them. Some school dinner ladies, not so much. And I think his school dinner lady, when at the age of 7, something 6, 7, something like that, was probably in the not somebody that you love. But there was something about either my posture, my tone of voice, my facial, that triggered his memory and experience of his school dinner lady that he didn't like. How would I know? Definitely a hala. Definitely an unintentional harm. My whole desire was to get him through this bloody exam. But at some level, I triggered it. So that's an unintentional harm. It wasn't anywhere in my radar, but it was in his. Heather is to go overboard, whether with yourself or whether others. So addictions would actually come into the category of a Heather. Because addictions are, I mean, when you're addicted, you definitely do go overboard, whatever it is you're addicted to. But also in the context of relationship with another person, it might be stalking. You know, an ex-partner has told you that they wish to have absolutely no more to do with you, but you still keep nipping past their house just to see if they're in. That sort of thing. That would be a heavy. You're going overboard. You're overriding clearly stated boundaries, and you know you're doing it. You're not doing it with intention to hurt the other person, but you know that if the other person knew that you were doing it, they'd be pretty cross with you. Yeah. Eno then is something that you do with the intention of hurting or harming the other person. Whether it's thought and it never gets past the blood-brain barrier, whether it's word, you say it, or whether it's deed, if you're thinking, I wish that person were dead, you are effectively committing an Eno because you're wishing that they were dead, with anger and hate and all that. So in thought and word or deed, if you are deliberately intending harm towards another person, that is an Eno. That's the third level. All those levels should be forgiven. And there may be an appropriate punishment. So when you're thinking about situations where somebody's hurt you or you've hurt other people, either deliberately or by accident, be willing to forgive yourself. Because we all do it. It's human. We've all done it. Maybe the Dalai Lama hasn't. Maybe the Dalai Lama, but even the Dalai Lama, he's got some great things on, great little videos on. He's got great little videos where he admits that he thought, he had a bit of a bad thought about somebody. So we all do it. We've all done it. We're human. It is part of the human condition. So having compassion for yourself and forgiving yourself when you've done it, and by the same token, having compassion for somebody else who does it to you. Also, you did this and you made me feel, yeah, actually we don't make other people feel. We choose how we feel. If it's the difference, if you look at some of the great big tragedies, and this is kind of moving into the collective thing, Marilyn, if you look at some of the big tragedies in the world, take for example, the particular example I'm thinking of, Gordon. Oh, I can't remember his surname. It's just gone from my brain. But it was one of the bombings in Ireland, the Omaha bombings, and there was a gentleman. His daughter was killed in the bombing, and his instant reaction was to forgive the bombers. Now there are other people who lost loved ones in that situation, couldn't forgive the bombers. Fair dues. But his reaction was, they did that. I felt this is how I feel, but he could distance himself from the idea that they made me feel like that. He was able to own his own reactions. And, to lose a daughter in that way, very understandable reactions. But he was able to say, no, this is about forgiveness because we're all human. Malala, more recent example. So Malala, the Pakistani, when she was a teenager, Pakistani girl, who was shot by a Taliban because she was an activist promoting the right of girls to education. And she was shot in the face by a Taliban. Fortunately, medical assistance was available. I think she came to the UK for additional surgery. Clearly an extraordinary young lady. She went to Oxford. Rather younger than most of us, and has been in phenomenal brain power, and has forgiven. It's very clear I had to forgive that person because otherwise they would have been with me for the rest of my life. The difference between her and somebody else who's had a similar experience and can't forgive that person, she recognizes the liberation in it for her, in forgiving and letting go. For other people, it's more of a struggle. But it is possible to forgive. We know it's possible to forgive because there are plenty of people who are doing it with extraordinary events. Not just, oh, my first boyfriend dumped me after 3 months. My first ever boyfriend dumped me after 3 months, and I'm carrying this with me and there are people who do that. They carry a relationship that began and ended 30, 40, 50 years ago, and they're still carrying it with them. God, that's baggage. It's good for coaches. That's how we get our business, isn't it? It's coaches. But it's a lot of baggage to carry around for a lot of time, and other people don't. So forgive yourself, have compassion for yourself for the fact that you're human. You made mistakes. You will continue to make mistakes. We all will. We all will, even going forward, even with all the growth work we've done, there will be things that we'll do and we think, oh, I really wish I hadn't done that. I should have done that. That was not the right thing to do. But self-compassion's really, really important. And ask your question, when I hurt people, was it a challah, i.e. completely unintentional? Was it me? Was it Heather? Was it me going overboard? Or was it Anina intentionally hurting? And whichever one of the three it was, I should be forgiving it in myself just as much as I forgive it in other people. Because we're all human. Does that help with that bit of the question, Marilyn? You muted yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and there is, I think, a lot of should, as you said. The expectation retrospective
Yeah.
of being 18, 19, 20, and according to my view today, being totally immature in relationship, especially with men, and not being honest at the same time. Yeah. I mean, not intentionally dishonest, but that really makes sense.
Yeah.
And then blaming my mother, who didn't educate me in that domain, it goes like a vicious circle.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, I mean, there's so much about those teenagers. Our brain hasn't stopped developing. I can remember when I was 18 and I really thought I was an adult. I was. I really thought I knew it all. I really thought I had all the answers. And I really didn't like people telling me that that was not true, that perhaps I still had some things to learn. I was 18. My brain hadn't finished. Still hasn't finished, but yeah. So it's at that age, we think, well, I'm 18, I should know it. I'm 19, I'm 20, I'm 21. That's right. Well, I should know. I should know better. Still learning.
But sorry.
Yeah, go
on. There is also this discrepancy in the sense of not having thought of any consequences, like really living in the moment.
Yeah.
Which, when I look at, for example, my daughter, who is 30 today, but I look even back when she was 20, there was so much more thinking, what is the consequence? What is but okay, I mean, I did educate her differently. I was very aware that if she would ask questions, I would also be available. But I think I really have to forgive my mother still.
Yeah. And that may be so. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because in NLP, they say people are doing the best they can with the resources that they have available.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not blaming my mother. I just have to forgive her.
Yeah. And she was doing the best she could. And some people don't have very many resources when they become parents. They really don't.
Or they're very selfish, whatever she was. I mean, she was a great woman. Please don't get me wrong.
No, I mean, that's just sort of expanding it out in terms of our parents. Some people become parents and they don't have a lot of resources. And I'm not talking about money. I mean, energetic resources, understanding resources, empathy resources, knowledge resources.
Or even think what her
or
parents
understanding the consequences.
and have a new generation. I mean, something a bit more elevated.
Yeah.
No. Thank you.
So yeah, forgive your mother. Oh, and the other thing is, of course, comparisonitis. My daughter is a much better. My daughter's so much better about thinking through consequences than I am, or whatever it is. But yeah, it can be interesting to compare ourselves with other people. Whether it serves us is a different question. Because usually when we compare, not always, but very often when we compare ourselves with other people, we do ourselves down. And we are we, and they are they.
Thank you so much. I got it.
So just moving into the collective forgiveness. A friend of mine used to say something to the effect of, if there's something going on in the world that you don't like, either do something about it or stop fussing. I think the actual phrase was, if you are playing God in your own universe sufficiently, you never have time to play God in anybody else's universe. So if you are fully focused on your life, getting your life, being the best human being you can be in this lifetime, then if you're really doing that to the max, you won't have time to be trying to make other people better or get them to behave in a way that they should behave, or wherever it is. So play God in your own universe to the max. That's the trick. And when it comes to these collective things in the world, yes, there are politicians doing things that we don't like. Now, there are some people who think that Trump is fabulous and fantastic. And in their model of the world, all their belief systems, their values and so on, he's a great man. And there are some people for whom Trump, no, their perception is he's the devil incarnate. They're your values and your beliefs. And irrespective of how you respond to him, if you're not forgiving him, you're chaining yourself. You're allowing him to enchain you. Now, if you don't like the way he is, if you perceive him as a bad man, do you really want to be enchained by a bad man? Or somebody who you perceive as a bad man? I mean, most of us would say no. And forgiveness is the way out of that. Forgiveness is it's the key. It's the liberating factor. Even, there were people who went through the Holocaust and had extraordinary and appalling experiences, who emerged from the Holocaust still able to forgive. And there are people who couldn't. And there are people who, they themselves had no Holocaust experience. They had relatives, perhaps, but they can't forgive the people who perpetrated whatever that was perpetrated on their relatives. So if people who've been through it can forgive, it is possible at a human level for all of us to forgive that. And it's a choice, it's a decision. But the more we stay in states of unforgiveness, unforgiveness acts like stress in the body. It affects us mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And it can be really, really corrosive, and particularly manifest itself in physical disease. Like all the physical diseases that you associate with chronic stress also may occur with unforgiveness, because it acts like chronic stress in the body. Emotion, I mean, usually it's physical or mental. The mental disease is the same. It's like chronic stress. It can shut your brain down. It can lead to depression. So there's quite selfish reasons for forgiving. And we are all human beings, there but for the grace of God. Now, I might say I would never do that. I might be absolutely passionate about the fact that I would never do it. Well, I haven't done it. I'm not doing it. But I don't know if the situation, if the situation was a particular situation, that I might do some pretty appalling things. And I own the fact there is the possibility that in a given situation I might do appalling things. I don't have kids, but I could see that if I did have kids and somebody was threatening my kids, I would do whatever it took to save my kids. And if it took killing the other person, I'd do it. That's an easy example. Things like the Holocaust are much harder examples. But as long as we don't forgive these collective, I mean, the Holocaust are very specific, but these collective experiences where we see something that we interpret as completely appalling, we do so much damage to ourselves and to the next generation and the generations to come, because unforgiveness goes down the generations. It's carried at the level of epigenetics. It's carried at the level of how your beliefs influence your behavior, which then impacts your children. What you say about a particular situation, that will continue down the line. It can be taken on as a belief by kids. And so it perpetuates over the generations. And bullies very often become bullies themselves. People who are bullied very often become bullies. So one generation is bullied. The next generation may themselves then become bullies. So forgiving definitely cuts off ancestral stuff that's been carried down the line and stops you perpetuating it, or me, or any of us. Does that make sense? You're muted, Marilyn. I can see your lips. Oh, you've got to take off. Okay, got to take off. Does that make sense to the rest of you? Marilyn's was the question, but does that make sense to the rest of you? Any other thoughts or questions? I've talked to Pam. I've talked to Marilyn. While you're thinking about it, I'll just go back to the Facebook group and then just see.
There's a lot of thoughtful faces.
There's a lot of thoughtful faces, so I'm just looking. Oh, it kind of relates really to to Marilyn's question about forgiving myself for being immature. So there's a question. This is from Elizabeth. Forgiving myself for taking so long to wake up to being myself and letting life pass me by, which I think I've probably addressed already, because it is about it's about, yep, we may have regrets. There may, things that it would have been, I wish I had done it, but I haven't. But it really is about that self-compassion, that acknowledgement that we're human. Lord, it took me, I didn't really even start to blink about waking up until I was 40. And I wished that I had worked, and especially when I met, like now I meet, it's brilliant because I meet these people in their 20s and they're getting into Huna, and I meet kids. When I teach Huna in Hawaii, we have we've had kids as young as 7, but usually they're about 11. But so long as they can sit through 90 minutes of somebody talking, we'll let them in without disrupting the class. We'll let them in. And these 7 and 8-year-olds, it's like, wow, what they're getting in. Wow, I wish that had happened to me when I was 7 or 8. I wouldn't have heard it when I was 7 or 8. I wasn't ready. They're obviously ready. So yeah, we have different waking up things. it's taken me a long time to wake up, but I feel I'm kind of peaking. Now I'm nearly 70. I feel I'm kind of stepping into the fullness of my waking upness. And perhaps the fact I didn't start until I was 40 means that I'm more zhuzhed and ready to go with it. I don't know. But yeah, we make choices. If we're still alive, we still have the possibility to grow and develop and change. And we can go on doing that till the day we die. And then the day we die, our soul goes, oh, okay, that body's done. Now, what's the next journey? But have compassion, just in response to Elizabeth's question, compassion for yourself and forgiveness for yourself. And how great that you have realized that there's stuff you want to do. Go and do it. Open up to possibility. The people who run marathons when they're 80. So, yeah, we are lucky to wake up even when it's later. Absolutely. I'm glad this lifetime. I'm glad I've done the waking up. I've done some waking up in this lifetime. Because I want to get to a point where I don't have to come back. Where I just go off in the soup and hang out with other people who don't need to come back. Just chill out with the chill out in the soup. But I guess until that time I'll just keep coming back until I don't need to anymore. So Marilyn, I know you had to take the call. Did that, in terms of your question about collective forgiveness?
Absolutely. And it was a great phone call.
Good. Good. Yeah.
It was, I'd share that with everybody because I have a bit of health issues. And my GP just called and she said I needed to go for a scan within 24 hours because one blood value was so bad and all is fine. So,
Yay!
yes, I'm very happy.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions? So I've taken the main themes from the Facebook group.
Hi. I don't know, I'm processing the end of a 25-year relationship. So I'm going through a divorce. So I know all about Huna and forgiveness and everything, but I'm wanting to get rid of all the stuff quicker. That's coming up. I'm angry, and why haven't I seen things sooner? I'm questioning myself and questioning my whole, perception of what's gone on and everything. So yeah, I guess I'm just sat in triggers and emotion and trying to make sense of it all, but also creating a life for myself that is free and I have forgiven and I'm okay with it. So I'm in that sort of bridge, and that's where I am right now. So any tips on getting there quicker?
So divorce is a form of bereavement. Not for everybody. I mean, sometimes one party in the divorce, it's a relief, but very often divorce is a form of bereavement, particularly after 25 years. So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who worked with the dying, came up with it was the grief curve in relationship to, specifically in relationship to bereavement, and the bereavement in question was death. That was then adopted by management gurus, so it's now called the change curve. But it's still the same curve. And what Kubler-Ross identified by doing a lot of work with people who experienced bereavement through death was that we, as humans, we go through this cycle And typically there'll be some kind of shock at first, anger and distress. And there's quite often a cycle between the anger and the distress. And we drop down into the anger and the distress. And at a certain point, and it's different for everybody, we start to emerge from the curve, and some people never do, but we start to emerge from the curve and we start to rationalize and we start to get the lessons and we get to a point where finally we can move on. So with any major change in life, particularly bereavements, but other major changes, acknowledging the fact that you're likely to go through some version of that curve, because that's what we do as humans. Being aware of where you are on the curve, and is there progress? So I'm just trying to draw this. It's funny to draw it. So that's my start point. That's the event. That's the divorce or whatever. And then, so where am I in this? Am I cycling? Am I doing shock, stress, anger, shock, stress, and I'm just cycling through a very small part of the curve, which is quite often does happen. If I am, what do I need to do to take me out of that? And it may be things, maybe the tools and techniques that you have for yourself already. It may be phone a friend. It may be reach out to professional, like whatever. But what is it that's going to take me out of, if I am cycling, what's going to take me out of the cycling bit of the curve and move me on? Because, yeah, you'll spend time in the curve, but the intention is, doing it the right way around for you, the intention is that I actually move through the curve so that I can come out the other side. There's also the acceptance of the fact that shit happens, life is not always easy, and yes, I may experience anger, I may experience grief. It's natural. And having a lot of compassion for yourself in respect of your emotions about that situation, and forgiving of both yourself and your husband, your ex is, I don't know where you are in the process, but your husband or ex-husband, for whatever you may have done or not done, whatever he may have done or not done, that contributed to this situation. And once again, I'm really not saying it's easy. But the more compassion you have for yourself in the process and for them, because I don't know any of your, so I mean, I know you're married, and I know it's to a man, and it's 25 years, and that's all I know. And that's probably all I need to know. So I don't know what the circumstances of the ending of the relationship has been, but having compassion for them as a human, living their life, traveling their path, and for yourself as a human, living your life and traveling your path. And and very often in relationships we hang on long after we really should have left them. I'm seeing a nod there. Because it's hard ending a relationship. It's really hard. And very often being in a relationship that doesn't quite work is better than the alternative of being alone, because we tend to be frightened of being alone. So as I say, I don't know what the situation is, but asking questions like, had the relationship actually run its natural course? So no matter that there's grief and there's grief or whatever, actually, should I be owning and acknowledging that and looking to move on and doing it with forget, because we all make mistakes. We've all done things that we really would rather we'd not done, and things that we feel we've all done things. Is there anybody here who can genuinely say, hand on heart, they have never ever done anything that they ever felt guilty about? Well, we've all done stuff to some degree or another. And so often the things that we do, we don't do them with the intention of hurting other people. We might know that if we did them and they found out, it would hurt them. But the desire to hurt either comes because you're a sociopath or because you're already feeling hurt by the other person and you want to hurt them because you think they hurt you. But again, if you carry that baggage around, it's very corrosive. And that's why forgiveness is just so liberating. And releasing old beliefs about me, about relationships, about my capacity for relationships, about love, about my capacity to attract love. Am I lovable? Because very often the end of a relationship can throw up those questions of, oh, well, am I lovable? So look at the beliefs that you might have, that there may be a cascade of beliefs that have suddenly popped up out of the boxes of your mind and gone, yeah, me. So look at the beliefs that you are now connecting with as a result of that experience, positive and negative. What are the lessons to get from it? And the other one always is, what does it remind you of? It's like going to a funeral and suddenly remembering the death of your pet dog when you were 9 years old, and all the grief comes up, and you go, my God, I never actually mourned my pet dog when I was 9 years old. Because that's another thing that bereavement does. It can trigger unresolved grief from previous bereavements, no matter how small. Although losing your pet dog when you're 9 years old. See you, Pam. Thank you for being here. Yeah, losing your pet dog when you're 9 years old. When you're 9 years old, that's big. Actually, losing your pet dog at any age is big, but can be. But yeah, a bereavement can trigger all that history of previous bereavements where there's unresolved or unexpressed grief. Those things where you never express grief or anger or whatever the emotions were. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of elements to it, but it is helpful seeing it as a grief cycle. But it also helps to see it as, we're on different paths and not aligned, is what you began this session with, sort of, where are you on your journey together, and things like that. And there are also things that get triggered, like, especially at the age I am or whatever, you kind of feel discarded, that you've brought the children up, and he's moved on, and I'm like, well, thanks very much, so there's lots of elements of it. So limiting beliefs, grief, not aligned, different paths. Yeah, there's a lot to process there. So it's yeah.
And I think and I've seen, I'll read Kat's comment in a minute, But I think there's something about he's moved, in the language, he's moved on. You now have a boatload of possibility opened up that wasn't there before. If you choose to accept it, and you can move on too. And moving on can look so different for each of us. Moving on for him may look like one thing. Moving on for you could well be something completely different. But it's there. The opportunity is there. The possibility is there. Even with her. And Kat says, my first husband chose to divorce after 30 years. It hurt a lot. But I learned about me, about him, and what I would do different now. I got remarried at 60, and I have a wonderful husband. So plenty of possibility. And my heart goes out to you because it's not easy. We wouldn't be having this conversation if it was.
No, I think I joined to go, oh, I need to do some forgiveness, but I'm not quite there yet. But I've got a big chapter ahead. I'm relocating back to the UK on my own and restarting my career, restarting my life, basically. So there's a lot of elements to work out, as well as processing the grief of leaving a 25-year relationship. So forgiveness will be there. I'll try it and see what comes up, but they are layers, as you know.
I mean, the thing I would say is I would be, there's a recording in the challenge. There's a recording that I've given you the link to the YouTube recording. I would be practicing Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian forgiveness process, as often as possible, because yep, it might take 6 months of doing it every day. It might, or it might be you do it once and it cracks it. But each time you do it, you're telling your unconscious mind, this is my intention. Forgiveness is my intention. And you're at a universal level, you're putting the energy out of, this is my intention. By taking this action of daily doing the forgiveness process with him, I am signifying that my intention is to forgive him. It might not happen today. I'm okay if it doesn't happen today, but this is my intention. This is what I want to happen. And it will. It definitely will. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Any thoughts? Any reactions? How does it land, or is it complete garbage? No, you're still here. I know it's not complete garbage because you're still here, Fiona Ben Hansel.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's been so interesting listening to it all again and everyone's comments. I think my question, if I had one, was I found the self-forgiveness quite difficult. And I think I told you in another meeting that I resisted it and resisted it. Because I think I wasn't brought up to forgive myself. And just listening to you there about the generational thing, I've actually, from what I've learned from, so many things over the past 5-6 years, actually asked my children to forgive me for some of the things, because I parented like I was parented.
Yeah.
And my mother didn't like you being sad or angry or any so-called negative emotion. So I think I did the same with my children. And so there's that. And I think one of my questions was, should I be doing it every day? And actually just listening to you, I think I should be doing it just a little bit every day and trying to forgive myself for things that I did the best with the knowledge that I had at the time. But it's still it's so deeply ingrained that you know, you don't forgive yourself. I don't know why it's that deeply ingrained, but it's like you did something, it's done, but it
Yeah.
was you were waiting for someone else to forgive you. You're not
Yeah.
forgiving yourself,
Yeah.
but you've still done something wrong, and that bit stays.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this has all just been, yes, just listening and yeah, so much learning. Thank you, Jane.
It's a pleasure. And thank you for being here. Hansel.
You touched on this so much, and it's part of my where I'm currently at working journey-wise is self-compassion. And hearing all the shares, all the stories, for me, a lot of tools, a lot of skills. Ho'oku was so helpful and so on. And moving fast was so helpful at so much for myself. And lately, it's been slowing down to just sit with it, not to enjoy it, but to accept that it's still part of me. And it was the self-compassion of just to say like I never paid attention to how mean I was to myself. Like, and then just recently, I mean recently, just like, wow, yeah, I'm saying this stuff to myself and it's very normal.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, I get why. Like, not to beat myself up on top of beating myself up, just the acceptance and then forgiveness and then recognition of, okay, that served it. The criticism served it. And is there another way I can speak to myself? So you going back to self-compassion so many times was really nice to hear of. And I think it's like a chicken and the egg. Like I'm not even sure anymore what's first, forgiveness or self-compassion. Either way, it was just yeah, I just wanted to share that in case it was helpful for anybody else.
Thank you. Thank you, Hansel. Yeah. Yeah. And you're right with the chicken and the egg. And does it matter? Probably not. Because we all grow in different ways and at different speeds. And it's so Kumamatsu, so my teacher and Hansel also knows him. He talks, he says, our life's progress tends to be more of a spiral than a straight line, and it's a tilted spiral. So what happens is, rather than with an upward spiral, you go like that with an upward spiral, because the spiral's tilted, you're kind of going like that. And so you go to the up and the down, it's not as low as the down on the previous curve of the spiral, but it's still lower than you when you were at the top of the spiral. And then you spiral up a bit higher. So it's like a tilted spiral as we learn the lessons. And the more development work we do, the more we do things like Ho'oponopono forgiveness, Ho'oku, which is the release of the process for releasing negative emotions, Kiave process, which is for resolving dichotomies and challenges. The more we do that work, the more we 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 shorten the kind of the lows are not as low as they were, and the speed of our movement through the spiral accelerates. It's still a tilted spiral, but we just come at it it's faster, and the peaks and troughs they become a little bit more even, and yeah, life happens, things happen, shit happens. You know, the older you get, the more likely it is that you'll go to a funeral. It's just a fact of life. And I'm at the age now where I'm going to more funerals. It's people, my peers, we're starting to fall off our perch, and some of us will make it longer, and some of us won't. But we are starting to fall off our perch, and even knowing that at my age, more of my peers are likely to be dying than when I was 30, for example. Each one is still it's an event. I grieve. I'm upset, and if the nature of the dying has been particularly uncomfortable, they've had serious cancer, something like that. Yeah, I still have a response to it, even though I know it's more likely because of the age that I'm at. And I have tools for dealing with the responses. And that's probably the difference, that now, when I was 30, I didn't have the tools anyway. I didn't know how to deal with these things. And quite often I suppressed them because I didn't know how to deal with them. What do you do with grief? Oh, just push it down. Because I don't know how to deal with it. Nobody ever taught me. So, yeah. Marilyn. That's a cancel, is it? Alrighty. Okay, so we're coming up to 6:30. Thank you so much for being with us. It might take me a day or two to get the recording sorted because I have a funeral to go to tomorrow. I genuinely do. It might take a day or two to get the recording, but anybody who has registered, you'll get a copy of the recording. And I am running a virtual Huna level 1 at the end of February. So teaching you in more depth these tools and techniques, teaching you how you can use them for yourself, plus some other exciting stuff, really transformational stuff. In it, Hansel. Yeah, because
Can't wait to go back. So
because he's done it. Yeah. So if you want to know more about it, just get in touch. You know where to find me one way or the other. But thank you for being with us, and catch up very soon. And as I say, the recording will come out it probably will be Friday because I can't see it happening tomorrow. So lots of love. Aloha.
Thank you. Aloha.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.